That's all right. That's all right. Understand yourself as an individual. It's very important to understand your own biases, your own, to examine those and to say, what do I come with them? Is there something, am I particularly, do I particularly review? And understand what you were talking about. Those are the dynamics that happen in your situation, in your context. Understand those relationships, those forces of change, where the power dynamic. And the capacity to engage in dialogue, and the capacity also to take the perspective of another. It's a very important thing to with the walk a mile in my shoes stuff. Just stick yourself in somebody's and well, what would be different if I was in that, and how can I understand what happened in this process? And developing, of course, your own personal cultural inquiry, this structure your way of thinking, be active. Just take an interest in evidence, collecting useful information. A lot of people are very, and one of the reasons why it's hard sometimes to get information, people are really reluctant today to work with particularly quantitative data, even quite simple quantitative data. People sort of don't trust their own skills in that. Unless a statistician actually puts the dot point, everybody goes, well, is that right? I think they're scared of it, haven't they? And so you get, and so I think it's terribly important that we start to reuse those skills and get those skills. Everybody can do a percentage. It's really, really simple. Everybody can do some of those. And again, if you trust yourself, you only have to look at it someday and go, that can't be right. I can't believe the number of figures that get put before me, and I go, that cannot be right. Well, the first cut we got for clients for the mental health system was 35,000. I said, that cannot be right. It cannot be right. It can't be the right figure. So in going back, of course, then we realised that it was a mixture of episodes of service and unique clients. And so just trust your own judgment. You've been around a long time. The self-evident. That self-evident stuff. This can't be accurate. So trust that. But I do start to learn more information. Be surprised by just doing a first stage analysis how much more insight you can get from a piece of data. You look at it and you say, well, what's that telling me? What does that tell me? But you divide it by something or multiply it by something or proportion it out, and you really start to get a sense of, well, that's telling me something quite interesting. So you do have to do something with the data, the raw data, to be able to do that. And I think it's sort of a shame that we've lost those other skills. Well, the social media I can tell about this. This is the art, as you heard Marcia Capo was talking about, the art of dialogue, the active listening, the asking the right questions, the open and closed questions, and also tackling the difficult questions. And a number of people who, when they're doing evaluation work, miss the very thing that they really should ask because it's sensitive or difficult or whatever. But the failure to ask that question, of course, means at the end of the day you've lost the opportunity to look at what really might be the problem. And these are often things like whether it's a management issue or those sorts of issues. So sometimes you have to tackle difficult questions. You need to say don't ask it in a respectful way. Think about how to do that.
Jill, can I make just a comment on that? If the people that you're working with within that team are confident in themselves, they will be willing to have that dialogue. But if you're working with people in a team that are not confident in themselves, then quite often that's why that breaks down and what we're doing becomes a weapon rather than a tool to evaluate and to move forward. So quite often it's about the people or a person or people in a position sort of part of that program or that project that's where the problems can stem from.
Well, I agree, but I guess as an evaluator, you're coming in not to contribute to the problem, you're trying to unravel the problem, and so you have to bring yourself, your headset has to be, how can I get them to recognise that they've got a confidence problem, and therefore they can do something about that problem, which is the difference from going in and say, and sort of
because you
feeling like you're putting them down because they've got a confidence problem.
Yes.
So it's a sort of way in which you actually present that to them, because the important thing is that they recognise their confidence problem and do something about it. Why are they underconfident? What's the are the expectations unreasonable, so they've lost their confidence? There's a whole range of reasons why people are underconfident in those situations. And so I think as an evaluator, I think that's the important thing. You've got to get that dialogue going to sort of understand what it is that they're really reacting to. And in my experience, 9 times out of 10, the obvious is never the easiest solution, conclusion is never the right one. Often it's much more complex when you unravel it than you think. And there's a whole range of dynamics are happening, and so many programs I have seen have got evaluated where the evaluators come to a conclusion very early on, and then made it a self-fulfilling prophecy down the track that that's what the problem is, and that's what the evaluation becomes. They decide that it's a problem of X, and so. Well, guess what? X becomes the outcome at the end, and so making those decisions too early and not looking at all of the dynamics, or not consulting enough with all of the players, and so just going with the opinion of one particular, not recognising that opinion may have, or may be a prejudicial opinion, or it may be an ill-informed opinion, or it may be a self-centered opinion. It may be that, and so going with one level of opinion, deciding that opinion. So it's really important, I think, always to keep that sort of balance going. This is really important, I think. Is it factual opinion? So much. It's just not as simple as quantitative and quantitative. Everybody looks at things, there must be facts because we counted it, so therefore there must be a fact. A la my 32,000 clients because we counted it, must be right. Or a fact that says that the information has objective reality. In fact, we know, of course. And opinions and beliefs, they're information-based or assumption. And so many times we ascribe a value to something. And often we ascribe value to things that we consider to be objective reality rather than those information-based assumptions or opinions. And of course, attitudes then flow from that, one's belief system or one's value system. So it's very important that we look at those two things very carefully. Another one that is a really good technique, and people just don't use it enough. It's what I call first principles thinking. Is there's so much convention in human services policies and programs, particularly in government. So we've always done it this way. This is the way we do it, and you feel like a complete heretic if you suggest anything that's outside of that frame. But thinking outside of what we've always done is really important. And also going back to the basics, there are a lot of assumptions built into why we work the way we do sometimes, or why programs work the way they do. And challenging all those beliefs and assumptions can be really, really important too. Now you don't have to do this overtly, you can just challenge it yourself. You can write down and say, what are the assumptions? What are the norms of this? And therefore, is there something there? Because often the real clue for change will come from something like that. And people will go, oh, well, I didn't think we could change that. I thought that was a given. I thought we had to do that and we didn't have any chance. And yet, in many respects, a whole lot of programs, particularly innovative programs, a lot of things are negotiable.